Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair at the center of the massive chamber. The Galactic Council Hall stretched out in all directions around him, filled with creatures he could barely understand. Some looked like giant insects with wings that sparkled in the light. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal that changed colors as they moved. In the far corner, he could see beings that looked like they were made of water, flowing and shifting in their special tanks. Jake had been Earth's representative for 3 years now, ever since first contact had been made with the galaxy. He had hoped this day would never come, but deep down he had always known it would. The humans back on Earth were counting on him to speak for their entire species. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy stone. The chamber fell silent as Chancellor Vextar rose from his throne. The ancient Zephyrian was over 15 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished silver and eyes that glowed with an inner light. His voice echoed through the hall when he spoke, carried by technology that translated his words into every language at once. "We gather today to decide the fate of the species known as humans," Vextar announced. "For 15 years we have watched them. For 15 years we have studied their ways. Today we vote on what must be done." Jake felt his heart beating faster. He had known this vote was coming for months, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that frightened him. Around the chamber, representatives from 847 different species stirred in their seats. Some clicked their claws on metal surfaces. Others made sounds like singing or humming. A few simply glowed brighter or darker. The first to speak was Counselor Zethra of the Quarrens. Her crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls as she stood. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The humans destroy without thought," she said. "On our world of Quara Prime, we had grown crystal gardens for over 10,000 years. Each formation was a work of art that took centuries to complete. The humans came with their mining equipment and destroyed in days what took us lifetimes to create. They said they needed the crystals for their technology. They offered to pay us, but money cannot replace beauty that took 10,000 years to grow." Jake wanted to stand up and defend his people, but he knew it would do no good. The council had made their decision long before this meeting began. This was just a show, a way to make their actions seem legal and fair. Next came Admiral Kretok of the Nerid Collective. The aquatic being spoke from inside his water tank, his voice bubbling and strange through the translation device. "The humans poison everything they touch," he said. "We welcomed them to our ocean world of Nerida. We shared our knowledge of the seas with them. They built factories on our shores and dumped their waste into our sacred waters. Our children began to sicken and die. When we asked them to stop, they said it would hurt their profits. They care more about money than life itself." More representatives stood to speak. The pattern was always the same. Each species told a story of how humans had hurt them or their worlds. The ethereals, beings made of living gas, complained that human radio signals disrupted their ability to think clearly. The Thorak, who looked like walking trees, said human cities had been built where their sacred groves once stood. Jake listened to each accusation, feeling smaller and smaller in his chair. Some of the stories were true, he knew. Humans had made mistakes. They had been too aggressive, too quick to take what they wanted without thinking about the consequences. But they had also tried to learn and do better. Why couldn't the council see that? Finally, it was Jake's turn to speak. He stood up slowly, looking out at the hundreds of alien faces staring back at him. Some looked angry. Others seemed sad. A few appeared completely uninterested, as if the fate of an entire species meant nothing to them. "Honored counselors," Jake began, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "I won't lie to you. Humans have made mistakes. We're a young species, and we're still learning how to live in this galaxy. But we want to do better. We want to learn from you, to grow, to become worthy partners in this great community of worlds." He paused, looking around the chamber. A few representatives seemed to be listening, but most had already made up their minds. "Give us a chance," Jake continued. "Don't judge all of humanity by our worst moments. Judge us by our potential. We have so much to offer. Our art, our music, our stories. We dream of exploring the stars not to conquer them, but to understand them. We want to be your friends, not your enemies. Chancellor Vextar's silver face showed no emotion as Jake sat back down. The ancient alien raised one long, thin hand and the chamber fell silent once again. The human representative has spoken, Vextar announced. Now we vote. The question before us is simple. Should the species known as humans be allowed to remain free, or should they be enslaved for the protection of the galaxy? Jake felt his blood turn cold. He had known this was coming, but hearing the word enslaved, spoken so casually, made him sick to his stomach. These beings were talking about turning his entire species into property, as if humans were nothing more than animals to be bought and sold. The voting began immediately. One by one, representatives stood and announced their choice. The Quarrens voted for slavery. The Nerids voted for slavery. The Ethereals, the Thorak, the Draconian Empire, the Silicon Confederacy. Every single species voted the same way. As the votes piled up, Jake felt a strange calm come over him. He thought about Captain Lisa Banks back on Earth, monitoring this meeting from her hidden command center. He thought about all the secret preparations that had been made, all the hidden projects that the galaxy knew nothing about. Maybe this vote was exactly what humanity needed. When the last vote was cast, Chancellor Vextar stood once more, his glowing eyes fixed on Jake as he spoke the words that would change everything. The vote is complete, he announced. 847 species have voted for enslavement. 0 have voted for freedom. The human species will be relocated to labor facilities throughout the galaxy. Their homeworld will be strip-mined for resources. Admiral Morrison, you have 30 Earth days to begin the surrender process. Jake stood up slowly. Around him, the alien representatives were already talking among themselves, planning how to divide up humanity's assets. They thought they had won a great victory. They had no idea what was really about to begin. 30 days, Jake said quietly. We'll be ready. Captain Lisa Banks stared at the screens in the underground command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The facility was so well hidden that it didn't exist on any map, protected by technology that made it invisible to every type of scanner the aliens had ever used. Around her, dozens of technicians worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The vote is in, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell reported from his station. 847 to 0, just like we expected. Lisa nodded grimly. She had been watching the council session through intercepted alien communications. Seeing Admiral Morrison sitting alone in that chamber, while an entire galaxy voted to enslave his species. The man had shown incredible courage, knowing that he was probably going to die and that Earth had only 30 days before the invasion began. Signal all stations, Lisa ordered. Operation Prometheus is now active. Phase 1 begins immediately. Across the room, communications officers began sending coded messages to hidden bases throughout the solar system. On the surface, the world would see President Karen Walsh preparing to surrender. Below ground, humanity would prepare for war. General Pete Collins walked over to Lisa's command station. The old soldier looked tired, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He had been planning for this day for over 10 years, ever since the first alien ships had arrived at Earth, and he had realized that humanity was walking into a trap. The president is about to address the nation, Pete said quietly. She's going to announce our surrender, just like we planned. Think the aliens will buy it? They want to believe we're weak, Lisa replied. It makes them feel better about what they're planning to do to us. Let them think we're just another primitive species that will go quietly into slavery. On the main screen, President Walsh appeared at her podium in the White House. She looked defeated and sad, exactly the way the aliens would expect a human leader to look after hearing the council's decision. But Lisa knew the truth. The president was one of only 50 people on Earth who knew about Project Prometheus. My fellow Americans and citizens of Earth, President Walsh began, her voice heavy with apparent sorrow. Today, the Galactic Council has made their decision about humanity's future. We have 30 days to prepare for relocation to facilities throughout the galaxy. I know this is difficult news, but we must accept their judgment. Lisa watched as alien monitoring stations throughout the solar system recorded the president's speech. They would analyze every word, looking for signs of resistance or deception. They would find none because the president was a better actor than most people in Hollywood. As the speech continued, Lisa activated her personal communicator. Dr. Foster, report to Command Level 3 immediately. Dr. Amy Foster arrived within minutes carrying a tablet covered with equations that would have made Einstein weep with joy. The brilliant physicist had been working on humanity's secret weapons for 15 years, ever since the first alien technology had been traded to Earth. The aliens thought they were sharing basic tools with a primitive species. They had no idea they were giving away the secrets of their own destruction. "How are the weapon systems coming along?" Lisa asked. Amy smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Better than we hoped. The orbital platforms are fully charged and ready. The fleet is in position throughout the asteroid belt, and the new FTL drives are working perfectly." Lisa felt a surge of satisfaction. The aliens thought they knew everything about human technology because they had been monitoring Earth's communications for 15 years. What they didn't know was that humanity's best scientists had been working in complete isolation, developing weapons based on principles that the galaxy had never seen before. "What about the ground forces?" Pete asked. "Sergeant Major Kate Sullivan has been training resistance cells in every major city," Amy reported. "Even if they manage to land troops, they're going to get a very unpleasant surprise." Lisa turned back to the main screen where President Walsh was finishing her speech. The president was explaining how human children would be separated from their parents and sent to educational facilities where they would learn to serve their new masters. It was exactly the kind of speech that would make the aliens confident that humanity had given up hope. "Phase 2 begins tomorrow," Lisa announced to the command center. "I want all surface installations to begin apparent decommissioning procedures. Make it look like we're actually preparing to surrender. The aliens need to see exactly what they expect to see." Over the next several days, the deception began in earnest. Human military bases around the world started shutting down their defense systems. Warships returned to port and powered down their weapons. Soldiers began turning in their equipment, looking sad and defeated as alien monitors watched from orbit. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. In hidden facilities that had been under construction for over a decade, the real, human military was preparing for war. Colonel Danny Rivera coordinated the movement of advanced weapons to strategic positions throughout the solar system. These weren't the crude nuclear missiles and energy weapons that the aliens expected humans to possess. These were devices that could manipulate the basic forces of physics themselves. Mayor Beth Johnson of New York City played her part perfectly, announcing plans to help organize the evacuation of her city. What the aliens monitoring her communications didn't know was that she was actually coordinating the placement of hidden weapon systems throughout the metropolitan area. Governor Alex Thompson did the same thing in California, preparing what looked like refugee camps but were actually military staging areas. The aliens were so convinced of human weakness that they barely bothered to hide their contempt. Intercepted. Communications showed Galactic Council members joking about how easily the primitive mammals had given up. They were already dividing up Earth's resources and deciding which species would get the best human slaves. Fleet Admiral Karthek of the Draconian Empire sent a message to the Council that made Lisa's blood boil with anger. "The humans are even weaker than we expected," he wrote. "They're actually helping us plan their own enslavement. We should have done this years ago instead of wasting time with diplomacy." But while the aliens celebrated their easy victory, Dr. Foster's teams were putting the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapons. The technology was based on discoveries that human scientists had made while studying alien equipment. The aliens had been so arrogant that they had never bothered to explain how their technology actually worked. They assumed that primitive humans could never understand the principles involved. They were wrong. Human scientists had not only understood the alien technology, they had improved it. The FTL drives that Dr. Foster had developed didn't just allow ships to travel faster than light. They allowed ships to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. The energy weapons didn't just destroy targets, They convinced the universe that the targets had never existed in the first place. "The fleet is in position," Ryan reported from his station. "All ships are running silent and invisible. The aliens have no idea we have anything bigger than a space shuttle." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The human space fleet consisted of over 300 ships, each one equipped with technology that was generations ahead of anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had been built in secret shipyards hidden throughout the asteroid belt, using materials that had been mining accidents as far as the aliens knew. Commander Tony Hughes sent a coded message from the flagship hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon. "All systems green. Weapon platforms charged and ready. Just give us the word, Captain." Lisa looked around the command center one last time. In 18 days, the alien fleet would arrive to begin humanity's enslavement. They expected to find a broken, defeated species ready to be loaded onto transport ships like cattle. Instead, they were going to discover that they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. "Maintain the deception," she ordered. "Let them think we're weak for just a little longer. When they finally realize the truth, it will be too late for them to run." On the surface, President Walsh gave another speech about cooperation and acceptance. Underground, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened the wrong species. The space around Earth's moon suddenly filled with light as over 50,000 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace. Fleet Admiral Karthek stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the draconian dreadnought Void Crusher, and smiled with satisfaction. The human homeworld hung in space before him like a blue and green jewel, undefended and helpless. The combined fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from every major species floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with power and advanced technology. The Zephyrian dreadnoughts were each the size of a small city, their silver hulls covered with weapons that could crack planets. The Quaran crystal ships looked like giant diamonds floating in space, their surfaces sparkling with energy that could slice through any known material. Behind them came the Nerid bio-vessels, living ships that could poison entire atmospheres with their toxic breath. The ethereal phase ships flickered in and out of normal space, existing partially in dimensions that most species couldn't even see. Hundreds of other ship types filled the space around Earth, representing every major military power in the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human government," reported Communications Officer Vrixtal, his insect-like features clicking with amusement. "They're asking us to be gentle with their population during the transfer process." Karthek laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "How thoughtful of them. Tell them we'll be as gentle as they deserve. Begin landing operations at their major population centers. I want transport ships on the ground within the hour." On Earth's surface, President Walsh stood in the Oval Office speaking into a camera that would broadcast her message to the entire planet. But she wasn't really talking to the human population. She was talking to Captain Lisa Banks and the hidden forces that were waiting for her signal. "The alien fleet has arrived," President Walsh said, her voice steady despite the fear she was supposed to be feeling. "We must remember that cooperation is our only hope for survival. We must trust that they will treat us fairly if we do not resist." She paused for exactly 3 seconds, then added, "May God help us all." The 3-second pause was the signal. In her underground command center, Lisa Banks heard it and felt her heart start racing with anticipation. She had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. "All stations, this is command." She spoke into her headset. "The President has given the signal. Operation Prometheus is now fully active. All units, execute Phase 3 immediately." Throughout the solar system, hidden human forces received the message and began to move. Behind Jupiter, Commander Tony Hughes powered up his ship's engines for the first time in months. The vessel that the aliens would have dismissed as a primitive human design suddenly blazed with energy signatures that no galactic database had ever recorded. "This is Hughes to all units," he transmitted on the secure channel. "Time to show these aliens what humans are really capable of. Remember, no survivors who participated in the vote to enslave us." The first wave of alien transports was already entering Earth's atmosphere when the hidden orbital platforms activated. These installations had been disguised as communication satellites for over a decade, but they were actually weapon systems based on principles that the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Karthek was studying a tactical display when his sensor officer suddenly screamed in alarm. "Sir, energy readings off the scale. Unknown contacts materializing throughout the system." The main view screen showed space around Earth transforming in impossible ways. What had appeared to be empty vacuum suddenly filled with human ships that seemed to bend reality around themselves. They moved at speeds that should have been impossible, turning and accelerating in ways that violated every known law of physics. "What is that?" Karthek demanded, pointing at the nearest human vessel. The ship seemed to exist in several places, at once its outlines shifting and blurring as if it couldn't decide which dimension it wanted to occupy. His science officer, a Zephyrian named Tekfor, stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, according to these readings, that ship is moving faster than light while remaining in normal space. That should be impossible." The first human ship to open fire was Hughes's flagship. The weapon it used didn't look like much, just a brief flash of light that seemed to hiccup in the middle. But when the light touched the nearest Draconian cruiser, the massive warship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not exploded. It just stopped being there, as if the universe had decided it had never existed in the first place. "All units open fire," Karthek screamed into his communicator. "Destroy the human ships." But the combined fleet's weapons couldn't seem to hit their targets. The human ships moved through space like they were dancing, slipping between laser beams and missiles as if they knew where every shot was going to be before it was fired. When the aliens tried to use their most powerful weapons, the energy beams simply bent around the human ships like water flowing around a stone. On Earth's surface, the alien landing forces were getting an equally unpleasant surprise. Sergeant Major Kate Sullivan had spent years training human soldiers to use equipment that the galaxy had never seen before. When the first alien troops set foot in New York City, they found themselves facing humans in armor that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The alien weapons, designed to kill any known life form, passed harmlessly through the human soldiers, like they were shooting at ghosts. But when the humans fired back, their weapons punched through the aliens' advanced shielding like it was made of paper. "This is impossible," screamed Sector Commander Vashati as his elite Quarren Crystal warriors were cut down by human soldiers, who seemed to be immune to energy weapons. No primitive species should have technology like this. In space, the battle was turning into a massacre. Human ships that had been hidden throughout the asteroid belt were now revealing themselves, and each one was more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved through the combined fleet like predators hunting prey, destroying ship after ship with weapons that the aliens couldn't understand or defend against. Fleet Admiral Karthek watched his mighty fleet being torn apart and felt something he had never experienced before: absolute terror. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. More than winning, they were demonstrating that the galaxy had completely underestimated their capabilities. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship," his communications officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He was no longer the defeated prisoner who had sat helplessly in the council chambers. Now he looked like what he really was: a military commander who had been waiting years for this moment. "Fleet Admiral Karthek," Morrison said calmly, "I'm going to give you the same offer your council gave to Earth. You have 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally. Your ships will be destroyed, your crews will be enslaved, and your homeworlds will be strip-mined for resources." Karthek stared at the screen in shock. "You can't be serious. There are 50,000 ships in this fleet." "Correction," Morrison replied with a cold smile. "There were 50,000 ships in your fleet. Check your sensors." Karthek looked at his tactical display and felt his heart stop beating. In the space of 10 minutes, over half of the combined fleet had been destroyed or disabled. Human ships were moving through his formations like death itself, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. "Impossible," he whispered. "We have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy." Morrison's expression didn't change. "No, Admiral, you had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. We just became the galaxy's new owners. Your 30 seconds are up." The transmission ended, and Karthek found himself staring at empty space where his flagship's sister ship had been just moments before. The mighty vessel had simply vanished, erased from existence by a human weapon that he couldn't even see. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Admiral Karthek gave an order he had never thought he would speak. All ships, retreat immediately. Signal full surrender to the human forces. But as he would soon discover, some mistakes are too big to be forgiven and some enemies are too dangerous to be allowed to survive. Major Scott Davis stood on the roof of what had once been the Empire State Building, watching alien escape pods streak through the sky like falling stars. His armor made him look like a warrior from some future legend, its surface shifting and changing as it adapted to different types of enemy fire. The technology was so advanced that it seemed like magic, but Scott knew it was just human engineering taken to its logical extreme. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha." He spoke into his helmet communicator. "The alien landing forces in New York are completely broken. They're running back to their ships as fast as they can move." Captain Lisa Banks's voice came through clearly, from the underground command center. "Understood, Major. What's the casualty report?" Scott smiled grimly. "0 human casualties. The aliens never even managed to hurt one of our people. Their weapons just pass right through our armor like we're not even there." The truth was even more incredible than it sounded. Dr. Amy Foster's research teams had learned to manipulate the quantum foundations of reality itself. The human armor didn't just deflect enemy weapons, it convinced the universe that the weapons were firing at something that didn't exist in the same dimensional space. Captain Julie Martinez flew her fighter through the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Her ship moved through space like it was swimming through water, bending and twisting in ways that should have torn any normal aircraft apart. The aliens had tried to shoot her down dozens of times, but their targeting systems couldn't lock onto something that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "This is Martinez to all fighter squadrons," she transmitted. "The alien fleet is trying to retreat to hyperspace. Don't let any of them escape. Our orders are clear, no survivors." The human fighters moved through the fleeing alien ships like wolves hunting deer. Each time an alien vessel tried to activate its hyperspace drive, human weapons would reach out and simply delete the ship from existence. The technology was based on discoveries that human scientists had made while studying alien equipment, but they had taken those discoveries far beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. Fleet. Admiral Karthek sat in his command chair, watching his fleet die around him. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just winning, they were demonstrating technology that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics. "Sir Chancellor Vextar is requesting immediate communication," his aide reported nervously. The ancient Zephyrian appeared on the main screen, his silver face showing fear for the first time in centuries. Behind him, the Galactic Council chamber was in chaos as representatives from hundreds of species screamed at each other in panic. "Admiral," Vextar said urgently, "you must cease this attack immediately and negotiate with the humans. We are prepared to offer them full membership in the Council, territorial concessions, even tribute payments." Karthek laughed bitterly. "Chancellor, with respect, I don't think you understand the situation. We're not attacking them, they're destroying us. My fleet has been reduced to less than 20,000 ships in under an hour. Their technology is beyond anything we've ever seen." On Earth, President Walsh was no longer pretending to be defeated. She stood in the White House briefing room, addressing not just the human population but the entire galaxy, through intercepted alien communication networks. "People of Earth," she began, her voice strong and confident. "For 15 years we have lived in fear of this day. The galaxy saw us as primitives, as a species that could be enslaved without consequence. Today, they learned how wrong they were." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "But this message isn't just for humans. This is for every species that voted to enslave us, every government that decided we were too weak to deserve freedom. You had your chance to treat us as equals. You chose to make us your enemies instead." In the underground command center, Lisa watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Human forces were advancing on alien positions throughout the solar system. But this was just the beginning. Hidden shipyards throughout human space were already launching the main battle fleet, over 300,000 ships that had been built in secret over the past decade. General Pete Collins joined her. At the main tactical display, the alien fleet is trying to retreat, but our ships are faster than anything they have. Commander Hughes reports that his battle group is already moving to intercept their escape routes. What about the core worlds? Lisa asked. Pete smiled. Strike Fleet Alpha launched an hour ago. They should reach the galactic capital in 6 hours. Strike Fleet Beta is heading for the Draconian homeworld. Strike Fleet Gamma has orders to neutralize the Zephyrian shipyards. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first made contact with alien species. Every trade agreement, every diplomatic meeting, every seemingly innocent cultural exchange had been an opportunity to gather intelligence and steal technology. The aliens had thought they were dealing with a primitive species that was grateful for their attention. In reality, they had been giving away the secrets of their own destruction. Dr. Foster appeared at Lisa's shoulder, carrying her ever-present tablet covered with equations. The weapon systems are performing better than our best projections, she reported. We're able to maintain quantum coherence across multiple dimensional phases while projecting destructive force that rewrites local spacetime. Lisa nodded, though she only understood about half of what Amy had just said. The important thing was that human weapons could destroy anything the galaxy could build, while human defenses made them nearly invulnerable to retaliation. What's our casualty count? She asked. Still 0, Amy replied with satisfaction. The aliens can't hurt what they can't properly perceive, and their weapons are based on principles that are 3 generations behind our defensive technology. Commander Tony Hughes led his battle group through the wreckage of what had once been the most feared fleet in galactic history. His flagship moved through space like a living thing, its hull rippling with energy that bent light around it in impossible ways. The ship's AI was based on quantum computing principles that the galaxy had never even theorized about. This is Hughes to all units, he transmitted. Begin Phase 4 immediately. Target all alien worlds that participated in the vote. Remember, we're not just winning a battle, we're ending a war that should never have been started. Throughout human space, massive fleets began moving toward targets that had been selected years in advance. The Quarren crystal worlds would be the first to fall, their beautiful formations shattered by weapons that could convince matter to forget how to hold itself together. The Narid ocean worlds would boil away as human ships demonstrated their ability to manipulate stellar energy directly. The ethereal gas giants where the living clouds made their homes would simply cease to exist, deleted from reality by technology that could rewrite the basic laws of physics. One by one, every species that had voted to enslave humanity would discover that some mistakes cannot be forgiven. Fleet Admiral Karthek made one last desperate attempt to contact the human forces. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on his screen, but the human officer's expression showed no mercy. Admiral Morrison, Karthek pleaded. Surely we can negotiate some kind of peace agreement. The Council is prepared to offer full reparations for this misunderstanding. Morrison's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. Admiral, there seems to be some confusion. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is exactly what we intended to happen. You see, we knew this day would come from the moment your people first made contact with us. We've been preparing for 15 years. But why? Karthek asked desperately. We could have been allies. You had that chance, Morrison replied. 847 species voted to enslave us. 0 voted to let us remain free. You made your choice, Admiral. Now you get to live with the consequences. The transmission ended, and Karthek realized that he was watching the end of galactic civilization as he knew it. The humans hadn't just been hiding their technology. They had been planning the complete destruction of every species that threatened them. In the distance, he could see human ships moving toward the hyperspace jump points that would take them to the core worlds. Soon, the galaxy would burn, and it would all be because 847 species had been arrogant enough to believe that humans were too weak to fight back. Chancellor Vextar stood in the Galactic Council chamber, watching his 1,000-year civilization collapse around him. The great hall that had once hosted representatives from 847 species was now nearly empty. Most of the delegates had fled when news of the human counterattack reached the core worlds. Those who remained huddled in their seats like frightened children, waiting for the end to come. "Chancellor," his aide whispered urgently, "the human fleet has entered the Nexus Prime system. They'll be here within the hour." Vextar nodded slowly. He had lived for over 300 years, had seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations, but he had never imagined he would witness the end of galactic society itself. The humans were moving through space with a speed and efficiency that seemed impossible, destroying everything in their path. The reports coming in from across the galaxy were beyond comprehension. The Quarren homeworld had been reduced to cosmic dust in less than 10 minutes. The Nerid Collective's ocean worlds were now lifeless rocks floating in space. The ethereal gas giants had simply vanished, as if they had never existed at all. Commander Tony Hughes stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human armada approached the galactic capital. Around him, over 50,000 human vessels moved, in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy that twisted space-time around them. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology that the galaxy had never seen before. "Sir, we're receiving surrender transmissions from over 200 species," his communications officer reported. "They're all offering the same thing, complete submission in exchange for survival." Tony smiled grimly. "Tell them it's too late for that. They had their chance to choose peace 15 years ago. They chose slavery instead." The human fleet entered orbit around the galactic capital, and Tony felt a surge of satisfaction as he looked down at the world that had once been the center of civilization. Soon, it would be nothing but another memorial to the folly of underestimating humanity. On the planet's surface, Admiral Morrison walked through the council chamber where he had once sat as a prisoner. Now the surviving alien representatives cowered before him as human soldiers in advanced armor took control of the building. The same creatures who had voted so confidently to enslave his species now begged for mercy. "Please," whispered Counselor Zethra, her crystal body flickering with fear. "We were wrong about your people. We can make amends. We can give you anything you want." Morrison looked down at her with cold eyes. "What we wanted was to be left alone. What we wanted was to be treated as equals. What we wanted was peace. You denied us all of those things." He walked to the center of the chamber where Chancellor Vextar still stood, with what remained of his dignity. The ancient Zephyrian had not fled like so many others, and Morrison felt a grudging respect for the alien leader's courage. "Chancellor," Morrison said formally, "I believe you have something that belongs to us." Vextar nodded and gestured to his aide, who brought forward a metal box containing the official records of the council vote. Morrison opened it and looked at the document that had condemned his entire species to slavery. 847 votes for enslavement, 0 votes for freedom. "Tell me, Chancellor," Morrison said quietly, "do you regret your decision?" Vexatar's silver face showed no emotion. "Regret implies that we had a choice, given what we knew about your species. At the time, the vote was logical. You were expanding too quickly, consuming resources too rapidly. You seemed dangerous." Morrison nodded. "You're right. We are dangerous. The difference is that now you know it." He turned to address the surviving council members. "For 1,000 years you ruled this galaxy through fear and intimidation. You crushed any species that threatened your power. You called it justice, but it was really just selfishness." The human admiral walked to the Chancellor's podium, looking out at the alien representatives who had once held the power of life and death over entire civilizations. "Today, the age of the Galactic Council ends," Morrison announced. "Today, humanity takes its place as the dominant force in this galaxy. But unlike you, we won't pretend that this is about justice or peace. This is about survival." Captain Lisa Banks materialized beside him, her image projected from the command ship in orbit. "Admiral, strike fleet reports are coming in from across the galaxy. The Draconian Empire has fallen. The Silicon Confederacy is requesting immediate surrender. The Thorak tree worlds are burning." Morrison nodded with satisfaction. "How many Species have been completely eliminated? Over 400 so far, Lisa reported. The remaining species are either surrendering or trying to flee to distant galaxies. None of them will escape. In the chamber, the surviving aliens listened to this casual discussion of genocide with growing horror. They were learning what humanity was truly capable of when pushed beyond their limits. Counselor Krexta of the Iridian Hive spoke up desperately. Admiral, surely there must be some way to negotiate. We can offer you tribute, territory, even our own people as servants. Morrison looked at the insectoid alien with contempt. You still don't understand, do you? This isn't a negotiation. This isn't a war that can be ended with treaties and agreements. This is an extermination. He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed now. Red dots marked human-controlled systems, which were spreading outward like a plague. Blue dots marked alien civilizations, and they were disappearing one by one as human forces reached them. Every species that voted to enslave us will cease to exist, Morrison explained calmly. Every world that supported the decision will be reduced to rubble. Every individual who participated in planning our slavery will be hunted down and eliminated. This is not revenge. This is evolution in action. Chancellor Vextar stepped forward. And what of the species that were neutral? What of the worlds that had no part in the Council's decision? Morrison considered the question. They will be allowed to continue existing, but under human oversight. The galaxy needs to understand that there are consequences for threatening Earth. No one will ever make the mistake of underestimating us again. Dr. Amy Foster appeared on the holographic display, her face excited despite the massive destruction that was taking place across the galaxy. Admiral, I have an update on the weapon systems. We've successfully tested the stellar manipulation array. We can now cause stars to go nova on command. Morrison smiled, and it was a terrifying expression. Excellent, Doctor. Please target the home systems of any species that attempt to flee the galaxy. If they won't accept human rule, they don't deserve to exist anywhere. In the chamber, the surviving aliens realized that they were witnessing the birth of something new and terrible. Humanity wasn't just winning this war, they were remaking the entire galaxy in their own image. President Walsh appeared on another display, broadcasting from Earth to every remaining inhabited world in the galaxy. People of the galaxy, she began. Today marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. For too long, this galaxy was ruled by species who believed that might made right, who crushed the weak and enslaved the innocent. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Today, you discover that humanity is neither weak nor innocent. We are the predators you should have feared from the beginning. We are the monsters you created when you decided to make us your enemies. The transmission ended and the chamber fell silent except for the quiet sobbing of alien representatives who finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. Admiral Morrison looked around the chamber one last time. This council is hereby dissolved. This government no longer exists. This civilization is finished. He turned and walked toward the exit, followed by his human guards. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at the aliens who had once held the power to decide the fate of entire species. Remember this lesson, he said quietly. Remember what happens when you threaten the wrong species, and pray that no one else in this galaxy is ever foolish enough to repeat your mistake. As the humans left, Chancellor Vexistar slumped in his chair, staring at the empty chamber where galactic civilization had just died. Outside, human ships continued their systematic destruction of every world that had participated in the vote to enslave Earth. The galaxy had learned too late that mercy must be earned before it is needed, and that some species are too dangerous to be allowed to make enemies. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity had begun, and across the stars, a new message began broadcasting to any civilizations that might be listening in distant galaxies. This is Earth. We offered peace, you chose war. Remember this lesson.